You have been meeting with the College of Cardinals that have made their way already here to Rome. And in some ways, the church is at a turning point. And there will be a new choice and that choice will be continuity or change. What do you see ahead?
No, can't accept that question as it is. No, the choice is not between continuity and change. The choice is to go forward, and that includes both continuity and change. And that has always been our way forward. We never make a total break, and we never stay in the past. So it's both. It has to be both. That's the life of the church.
It's interesting that you say it can be both.
It has to be both.
It has to be both.
That has to be both, yeah. Our mission, we exist, the church exists to bring the gospel to society. Societies are constantly changing. You know that better than I do, and quickly. And so there has to be constant change. On the other hand, the gospel is the gospel. We're not changing it. We're not changing the traditions of the church, the teachings of the church. So there's this continual continuity with renewal, with new efforts. And this would be true in a single society. If you look at the church, which is in 200 or 300 countries, so much the more so.
As you know, on the issue of LGBTQ, when Pope Francis said, "Who am I to judge?" that ricocheted around the world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's a change for the church.
It's certainly a change of attitude and style, that's right.
And do you think that will continue?
Oh, I'm sure it will continue.
You do?
And sure. And it's already continuing. You don't want to collapse the whole church into the Pope. You know, there's a huge church out there. And so there's a huge variety and richness of responses. And I very much hope that the famous phrase, "Who am I to judge?" That people will say, I've lived this in my parish, I've lived this in my community, I've lived this in my school.
How would you describe how Pope Francis reformed the church?
Well, the easiest, the quickest way of saying it is that he brought the Second Vatican Council, which itself was the greatest reform of the church in our time, in our history. He brought the Second Vatican Council to life in the lived life of the church. And this was and is a great accomplishment. Well, I would say not an accomplishment because that sounds like it's done, but it's a great step, a great move forward. And so that's, for me, is the great achievement, or one way of saying the great achievement of Pope Francis.
Mm-hmm. And so for lay people, what does that mean?
It means an understanding of the church as the people of God, each of us with our different calling, all of us contributing to the life of the church, all of us called to be missionaries, all of us called to evangelize, and those of us who are ordained or in religious life are serving God's people without that former image of somehow being higher or on top or something like that. That's very important.
How will the way Pope Francis talked about migrants influence how historians view his legacy?
Well, I think they will say that he recognized a huge reality of suffering, and that, as in other instances, he, following the teachings of Christ, he put himself in the shoes of those who suffered, and he asked us all to respond to those needs. And I don't know how often he said it, but I certainly feel that any one of us in that situation would pray and hope and expect to be responded to be welcomed, to be cared for, to be protected, and finally to be integrated. And if any of us were faced with the conditions from which people are fleeing, we would flee too. We would flee quicker and sooner because we wouldn't put up with it. So I think he will be remembered for helping us to make the problem or the challenge of the migrants and refugees our own. And that's what we have to do in order to solve it properly.
In speaking to so many people that are here and were in line who wanted to pay their respects to Pope Francis, they said, you know, he changed my life. He changed the world. And my mom reminded me to focus too on how Pope Francis made people feel.
Mm-hmm.
He made them feel seen. He made them feel heard.
That's right. No, and that's why the first response that he called for migrants to be welcomed is the first response that we need to give to each and every person in each and every circumstance. If you don't welcome, there's no further possibility. And that fits in with the synod, which begins with listening. And welcoming and listening are, in some ways, there are two ways of saying the same thing. And listening is the challenge, And that's why the focus on migrants or the development of the synod is so important, because it isn't just a church matter. We need to learn to welcome. We need to learn to listen if we're going to survive as a human family. That's how serious it is. And if the church can help the human family to learn to welcome and to listen, we will be doing our job.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Be a good listener.
No, it's more than being a good listener. It's to really listen, which is to say to listen when it hurts, and then to listen some more. That's the tough part.